Hey, welcome back. Or if you're new, my name is Delian, and this is the channel where we talk about becoming the main character of our own lives by understanding ourselves, being able to have agency over the narrative we choose to live in about ourselves, and therefore live more authentically. So, bunch of things we like to explore here, and one of those things is astrology and another one is style. And today I'm going to talk about the overlap between Mars and how it might show up in your and where it shows up in your chart and how that might affect your approach to style along with your approach to being motivated, feeling inspired, right? So, I'm really excited about this one. Let's dive in. I'm going to start with a little bit about Mars and why I think it needs a rebrand. I think that Mars has been in this mode of being, how do I want to say this, like toxically aggressive seeming. And first of all, I love Greek mythology, love it, obsessed with it. And I think that there is some of the translations that shows up in astrology that's so based on Greek mythology, Roman mythology, that it's doing a little bit of a disservice because we have to remember that these planets, these placements, right, have an energy that they're sending out. And just because the Romans and the Greeks associated that energy with a certain thing, they described it, they translated it through that thing, doesn't mean that is the pure motivation of where that planet's energy is coming from, right? So I think that there's something to be said here because Mars often is depicted as like the aggressive energy, the assertive and the war type of energy, being impulsive. And I do think that impulsive is part of it, but and I think that it can have an assertive edge, an aggressive edge. However, that is not what it is in its pure, there's the pure state of what's happening with the Mars energy, but then there's how it gets translated through your chart, through the sign it's in, the house it's in. So yes, that's my quick soapbox thing about Mars. I think that Mars actually is simply showing you where you get motivated, what makes you feel inspired. And those things tend to create movement. Yes, those things create an assertive quality, sometimes even an aggressive kind of moving towards what you're energized by, right? It's just what energizes you. And clearly I'm very energized by this. So, okay. Now that I've shared a little bit about Mars, now I'm going to go through Mars in each of the signs/houses and how it might affect your approach to style/life. So, Mars in Aries / the first house. Typically speaking, this would be a placement where people would be like, this person is the epitome of all of that aggressive, assertive energy I was just talking about. Okay, well, this is why I don't believe it's true. That's my Mars. I have Mars in the first house and in Aries, perfectly conjunct my ascendant. And this is not at all how I feel. I do think that I naturally have a lot of energy. I have lots of ideas. I love things that I'm inspired by. For me, Mars in the first house or Aries is like ideas sparking everywhere. It's being motivated by inspiration itself, right? And of course, if you have Mars in Aries or the first house, but also in another sign or house, that creates some flavors. Most of us don't have Mars in the same house and sign, right? That does happen, but it's not for the majority of people. So go see the flavor of your Mars, if it is in Aries or the first house, what other placement it might have. And if you are somebody who does have Aries in the first house and in Aries, leave a comment, because hi twin. Let me know how your life experience has been. So anyway, Mars in Aries or the first house, just inspired by like movement itself, really wanting to move through life, but what sparks your energy, what makes your senses hum. There is this quality of like wanting to only move if you feel inspired, which has its own problems. And when it comes to style, there is like this, I think that there's a possibility of like wanting to impulsively move towards whatever is shiny, whatever it feels fun and exciting in that moment, which can lead to problems, because if you don't have structure or systems in place, you'll just have a closet full of stuff that, you know, in the moment felt really cool, but doesn't actually work for you. So that's something to be on the lookout for. I also think that style has to feel inspiring in order for somebody with the Mars in Aries or first house to even get into style. And I get that. So if you aren't into style and you happen to be watching this and you have a Mars placement here, what I would say is like, remember that style is just a storytelling tool. You're doing it anyway. So why not do it and show the story that you want to be sharing with yourself and others, which is so cool. Okay, Mars in Taurus or the second house. It hit me like a ton of bricks the other day, and I can't believe that I haven't used this word yet in the past videos, but Taurus is all about nesting. It's all about creating an environment that's soothing to you, right? Like that makes you feel cozy and cared for, and like that you have the resources available to you to be fed and to have what you need. And there is a luxury component to that for some people. And it may feel like, I think nesting in and of itself is a luxurious thing, but it's about getting taken care of. It's about having enough, right? It's about being, nurtured, right? Nurtured in a very, like you're taken care of. Your needs, your resources are being taken care of. And so if you have Mars here, being very motivated and inspired by things that make you feel like you're creating that nesty environment. What nesty is not a word. that environment of being in a nest, right? What are those qualities for you? And this is where it's exciting. What if your Mars is in Taurus and in, I don't know, in the ninth house, right? That's going to be a totally different kind of nest vibe than if it was a Mars in Taurus and in the third house, right? Both of them probably have lots of books, but that's besides the point. You need to go and ask yourself, what kind of environment makes you feel like you're being taken care of? And I do think that almost every Taurus person I know does have a tendency towards wanting to be respected, or wanting to be respectable, or having this, there is admiration that gets tied up into Taurus. And I think it's because, generally speaking, as we get older, we don't get the same level of resources unless we are respected. Excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of water. So being motivated by being respected, by being in an environment that like really feels like your version of a nest. And so just noticing that when you approach your style, those things are going to be important to you. especially if you have a strong Mars in your chart. So, and if you don't know if you do or don't, just send me a message and we'll get a reading set up for you. All right. Mars in Gemini, or the third house. You are motivated by learning things. You are motivated by probably learning lots of things. There's likely, you're feeling inspired by new knowledge, new experiences. And it's not even like necessarily doing a super, super deep dive into every one of those learnings. It's more about like skipping a rock over a lake, right? Like all of those little skips are, you get a taste of knowledge, a taste of something new to learn, a taste of something new to learn, right? It's like it's this never ending dipping your toe in lots of different things and getting lots of fun new information. And when it comes to style, I would not be surprised if you have a Mars in Gemini or the third house that you know all of the style systems, at least on a surface level. Maybe if you have some other things going on, like if it's in Sagittarius, if it's Mars in Gemini and then also the ninth house, the likelihood that it's also a deep dive goes way up. But there is to me, I think that needing to know, at least on a surface level, a lot of knowledge, because that makes you feel energized. It gives you, like Mars is like being in touch with your senses and being in touch with your energy, right? And those two things flowing. I also think that if you have Mars in Gemini, the likelihood of you being like a fast talker goes way up, as long as you don't have other things getting in the way. So be on the lookout for that. Any squares, or if there's another planet that's like right next to it, that might be creating some other energy that goes along with that. Or if it's retrograde. If your Mars is retrograde, just be on the lookout that you may have times in your life where you have lots of energy and then you have to rest quite a bit in probably that specific area. So, yeah. Okay, Mars in the fourth house, or Cancer, being motivated by making yourself feel emotionally loved, being really motivated by like creating it's not the same as Taurus in terms of like creating a physical nest. It's more of like creating a space where your emotions are taken care of, which is very different from person to person and might not have as much to do with the physical resources, right? A lot of times it's more about relationships. So being really, really motivated by who am I in relationship with? Who am I connected with? Who's nurturing me? Who do I get to nurture? It's going to be a lot of like fun movement mom energy that can exist here. And I like in terms of style, Mars in Cancer or the fourth house, likely your style is going to need to be inspired by a level of nurturing your emotional world. So getting in touch with your emotional world would be important. I would also say that sometimes Mars doesn't want to slow down enough to get in touch with emotions unless I take that back. I think Mars here in the fourth house or in Cancer would actually be inspired to be in touch with their own emotions, like really inspired to be like, what's going on inside of me? What's going on inside of you? How can we take care of that? And so when it comes to style, making sure that that is a big part of the conversation. And if for some reason you don't feel like it's allowed to be a part of your conversation, that might be where you're getting stuck in your style. Because again, wherever your Mars is, if you're not utilizing that energy, that inspiration, that motivation when it comes to how you approach your style / life, then the likelihood of you getting stuck because you're not moving forward, there's no momentum, goes way up. So we want to make sure that we really utilize this area and not overdo it too, which is another thing that can happen with Mars energy. So the idea is making sure that you let this area of your life have a voice, have a say, because otherwise you're not going to get a lot of movement. And we want that. We do want movement. We want to be able to implement the things that will create the kind of lives that we want. So again, Mars in Cancer, the 4th house, just a high likelihood of being inspired by your own emotional needs and likely the emotional needs of others, like, and bringing that into the style. Like, I could see somebody here being very conscientious of what they wear and how it affects the people around them, which that's pretty cool, like on an emotional level. So use that wisely. Mars in Leo or the 5th house. Being inspired by creativity, being inspired by like expression, being inspired and motivated to like show what's going, like what you can make, right? So if you have Mars here and you keep trying to approach your style from a very utilitarian standpoint, and then you wonder why it feels dull, this is why you have to, doesn't mean that you have to throw out systems or pragmatic issues you may be facing in terms of your approach to style, but it does mean that you won't feel motivated and you will have less energy if you don't bring in this creative spice. There's a need to be like able to have fun, trial and error. The artist doesn't like that. I think the idea of artistry is to be able to take what's inside of you, in your imagination, in your heart, in your gut, and make something tangible that can be experienced. And it's not meant to be perfect. The art is in the producing of that thing, in the making of that thing, in the experience of being able to express. And I think that would be really, really, really important for somebody with Mars in Leo or the 5th house. And yes, for everything that I've been saying about all of these, if you don't have energy, if you feel burned out, check out where your Mars is and make sure you're implementing that energy and or not overdoing that energy. Because again, if you overuse your Mars, especially if you don't refuel yourself, and so figuring out where you need to be refueled, right? Go check out where your moon is, then the likelihood of burnout gets really high. So, okay. Mars in Virgo / the 6th house. Oh my goodness. Inspired by what is practical. This is the person who probably gives like the best practical home warming gifts. This is going to be the person who just like has an eye for like what's needed, like what other people need, what they need in order for life to go smoothly. And so I keep joking that if you have a lot of Virgo energy in your chart, like you're the person who never leaves the house without everything you might need, and that you have outfits that have the pockets that you need, or you have a bag that has all of that is like perfectly designed to hold everything you might require for whatever you're going out for. That is great Virgo type of energy. And if you have Mars here, you're motivated by that kind of thing. You're inspired by that kind of thing. I think there's a high likelihood if you have Mars in Virgo that when you approach your style, there's a need to make sure you turn some of that attention, that pragmatic and practical nourishing towards yourself, because it can be a super outward focused position. And so some of the balance here, if you do have Mars in Virgo or the 6th house and you're experiencing burnout, it's most likely because you're taking all of that energy and putting it out and not necessarily making yourself a part of the equation. So, of course, there's lots of other things that could be going on in your chart. So take this with a grain of salt, but I definitely see this for Mars in 6th house and Virgo people. It's just popping in my head, the people I know. So yeah, definitely very, very important. And definitely a need to have a, like, somebody's popping in my mind who has their Mars in the 6th house, and they also have quite a bit of Libra energy in their chart. And so they really love like being put together, being a bit like aesthetically appealing to themselves and to the world. And also, if it doesn't have a certain level of practicality, especially for whatever environment they're going into, they like are drained so fast. It's really interesting. So do with that what you will. Moving on. Mars in Libra, or the 7th house. Motivated by beauty, motivated by harmony, motivated and inspired by things that are just like, if you have Mars in Libra, the 7th house, please tell me if you're the kind of person who, when you walk into a room and you see a frame crooked on the wall, that it's like you have to go fix it kind of energy. I don't have that. I don't have that. I have other things, but that's not one of them. And so, yeah, please let me know if this is a thing for you. But yes, definitely in terms of how you approach style, you need to get in touch with what feels beautiful to you and to embrace it. And if you are burned out, it is likely because you're not letting yourself experience and allow that beauty to be a part of your style / your life. Because style is just another expression of our lives, right? Okay, what else do I want to say about this? I do think that I think out of all of the signs, I think this is true. I think that Taurus, Virgo, and Libra are the most likely to want their values to be seen through their clothing. And so I have to think about this more. But I would say for those signs in particular, know what your values are and make sure that you are approaching your style through those values, because if you're not, I wouldn't be surprised if that burns you out or if you just feel deflated, right? Because that's an unused Mars. That's what happens. Like our energy just goes away. Okay, Mars in Scorpio, the 8th house, motivated by, inspired by those deep, dark things that nobody else wants to go and look at. If you have Mars here, the likelihood that you have an incredible amount of intensity is quite high. There's also, I think that of that description that we generally hear about Mars energy or Aries energy, I actually think that that is most expressed when Mars is in Scorpio or the 8th house, because Scorpio in the 8th house also deals with power dynamics and like who's on top kind of energy, right? And there's sensuality here. There's the mystery, there's the what's unspoken and taboo. And so Mars is going to be interested by these things, right? There's going to be your senses are going to come alive around these kinds of topics. And so the likelihood that your style is going to be motivated by a need to embrace those sorts of qualities, I think is important. I think that if you have Mars in Scorpio or the 8th house, if you don't bring some level of either mystery, sensuality, moody, edgy type of energy into your style, it's not going to have the same sense of inspiration for you. Again, Mars rules Aries / the 1st house, and this Aries in the first house, it's about that moment of breath that we have, the moment of being inspired to breathe in. And that just means that we're alive. And so you come alive with Scorpio / 8th house things. Does this mean that you wear silk dresses and leather jackets? Not necessarily, right? But it does mean that there's something important about those darker occult or taboo qualities that you're here to get in touch with, so that you can be inspired by those things for you. I also think that if you have Mars in Scorpio, like, style is a psychological game for you. You want to be able to have, like, you want to understand the psychology of color, or like how it's creating an emotional reaction in people. Like, all of those sorts of things I bet would be really exciting for you. Okay. Mars in the 9th house or Sagittarius. Motivated by knowing your truth, knowing your philosophy when it comes to style and life, and being able to know you are free to implement that. If not, like, not just free to implement it, meant to implement it. Meant to be able to say, this is what I have experienced to be true. And if you don't let yourself be motivated by the path to truth, not certainty. Truth is a little like science, I think. I have to make sure that I believe that statement. Yes, I think so. I think so. Truth is not like this island we land on, right? It is more this territory that we're continually understanding. Because one moment a truth could be, that I don't even have a good metaphor. Truth, I think, is something that is growing, that we're understanding more and more of as we move through life. And with Mars in Sagittarius or the 9th house, you need to allow the journey towards truth to continue to unfold. If you don't, this is likely where you'll feel stuck, right? This is where you might not, like, if you have Mars here, then the need to explore, the need to be able to keep gathering the experiences and implementing the learning that you've had from all of your experiences. Like, this is going to be, this is why Sagittarius is known as the teacher, right? Because they are synthesizing their experiences into a format that is able to say, here's some truth, here's some light, right? Let me shed some light on this, because, again, synthesizing experiences. And if you cut yourself off from experiences, then you will not have energy. So keep exploring. If you're somebody who has Mars in Sagittarius or the 9th house and you feel like you don't have any energy, go and check out if you aren't letting yourself explore. If you've let yourself get stuck in, like, this is my truth, or this is the system I follow, or, this is somebody who could very easily have, like, I am a true summer and therefore I only wear these colors. And if that doesn't make you feel freer, if that makes you feel like you can't explore certain things with your style, you're going to get burned out. You're deflated. That would be my guess. And you're here to be moved by the exploration, by the journey towards truth, the unveiling. Okay. Mars in the 10th house or Capricorn. Motivated by structure, motivated by systems, motivated by, like, where's the to-do list? let's find the step plan. This is a perfect example of like somebody who knows how to put together a spreadsheet, somebody who like has a system for their clothing, that has like their outfit templates, and somebody who's like, I want to be able to follow these things so that I know that when I do these things, I will reach this destination. So if you're not into style and for some reason you're still watching this, or you just hopped up here to the Saturn area and you realize because your Mars is in Saturn or the 10th house, and you're not following a structure, chances are you're going to feel a little burned out or deflated, or like you just don't know where to go or what to do exactly. And I think that just because we have Mars in a certain area and that's where we get our energy doesn't mean we're good at it. Sometimes we are here to learn how to activate our Mars. Again, go check if it's retrograde or like squaring something like Saturn. Like there's sometimes we're here to actually like figure out how to embrace certain areas of our life, and that could be your Mars. And so if you have Mars in Capricorn or the 10th house, and you are somebody who's like, why? Like everybody says that if I have Mars here, then I'm like the person who's like dutiful and focused and like I get things done. And well, you maybe, but you might also be a person who like struggles with doing those things because you're here to learn how to create systems for yourself. You're here to learn how to create structure for all of this intense, inspirational energy to flow, which is super cool. Yeah, and finding a balance in your style that allows for inspiration within structure. It's like the conversation here is like creating systems that allow for the inspiration. Because sometimes if we don't have a structure, our inspiration doesn't have a place to like exist. It doesn't have a place to flow, right? Inspiration is an energy that wants to be able to move through conduits, right? So the structure is a conduit. Okay. I think that's what I've got for that one. Mars in Aquarius or the 11th house. Motivated by the desire to be unique, different, and at the same time, a part of a tribe or a part of a group, like really motivated to like be like really truly express the interesting, intriguing, different, potentially odd, anti-cultural type of vibes that they have, but loving to do it within a group, right? Wanting to find their group to do that in, and to bring people together so that everybody together can express their uniqueness, which is a really fun paradox that I think Aquarius in the 11th house kind of has. And if you have your Mars here, you're motivated by those things. You have an inspirational quality to want to express your uniqueness and to potentially even create space for other people to do the same thing. And if you're not letting some of your quote unquote freak flag fly through your style or your life, then are the chances of you being burned out higher or not having like energy higher? I think so. I think that that's a real possibility here. So the things that I would be on the lookout for, if you have Mars here and you don't have energy, go see, like write down the word unique, write down the word interesting, intriguing, inventive, whichever one of those words like kind of resonates, like you feel it. And then write down all of the things that make you feel that way. It doesn't have to be about style, right? Write down anything that makes you feel that way. And then see if there are ways that you might be able to bring that into your style, right? It could be certain colors. It could be certain songs. It could be that's the thing. We're doing some Sagittarius vibes in this channel because we're exploring who we are by looking at lots of different things, lots of different experiences, and from there gathering data. And so gathering data about our authenticity, right? Gathering data about like what's going on in our inner world through these different avenues so that then we have agency over the authorship of that story, the experience of our story. And if you have Mars in the 10th or in the 11th house or Aquarius, the need to be like a little different is going to potentially be something that brings you a lot of energy. So yeah, what are those things for you? Okay. Mars in Pisces or the 12th house. Oh, motivated by a sense of just soul level connection to beauty and the divine. And it's not just beauty, like Libra beauty is like the physical aesthetic. For Pisces, it's like this feeling of life itself being beautiful, you being beautiful in this life. There is this incredibly otherworldly, ethereal quality here. And Mars is inspired to move towards that ideal, to move into what makes you feel so in touch with this other world, right? There's the pro could be that the Mars energy creates enough tangible motivation to bring some of that fantasy into reality. There's also the possibility that your Mars might get lost in this other world. So that's a little caveat that I want to throw in here for the Mars and Pisces. Because what we don't want necessarily is for all of our energy to be spent in a fantasy if that's not going to give you the life you want, right? And so being able to make sure that you bring some of that fantasy into your style, into your actual life. So I wouldn't be surprised if you have a very rich fantasy life, very rich idea of like, how life could feel, how you could feel in life. And that's beautiful. That's wonderful. And also see if there are ways you can actually have touch moments of that in your real life. Maybe it's a certain scent. Maybe it's a certain fabric, certain colors, right? A certain hairstyle. It could even be a way you want to talk. Perhaps you like having a bit of a wispier, grounded, elven type of voice. Like, that's amazing if that makes you, again, we're here to have authorship over our own experience. And we can do that with our voice. We can do that with our clothes. We can do that with how we think about ourselves. And I just get so stoked about this. Okay. In terms of, I said some things about style here, but I would definitely say just really having a desire to bring some of that fantasy, those fantasy elements into your expression. And so I think that's what I've got. I think we hit them all. All right. Let me know what you think. Is there anything that I missed? Is there anything you would add? I love all of the comments. You guys are the best. And I'll see you all in the next video. Oh, I should also say, if you liked this video, like, comment, subscribe, stick around. And I'm just amazed and grateful for everyone here. So, all right, I'll stop rambling now. I will see you in the next video. Bye.